All right, welcome to Average Joe's podcast. This is our second episode in our rulebook and policy preseason vote preview. Today we're going to be joined by two other people, different this time, but as always, I'm Zygmus Maloney out of Chicago, Illinois, and it's kind of raining, sprinkling right now.
I'm Zach, coming from you from Oxford, Michigan. I'm the captain of CMU Dodgeball, and it's about to storm real hard. So,
I am Colby Priceland. I am currently coming at you from North Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. It's beautiful here. I actually had to come inside to do this podcast. I've been out all day. I'm pretty red. Yeah, beautiful weather and everything. I'm from the University of Akron. I'm the captain.
All right, nice. So we're going to be talking about three rules today. Zach Bachner actually proposed a rule. We're going to be talking about redefining the LAZ. We're also going to be touching on early overtime, which is basically the same thing as early halftime. And then, what's the other one?
The mercy rule.
Mercy rule.
Yeah, like calling a game at a 4-point differential. So we'll launch into that last one, the latter. Calling a game at a 4-point differential, which was proposed by Caleb Arnold at Ohio University.
Yeah.
So it's basically just a run rule in baseball. If a team is up by 4 or more points at any time in the second half, then that second half gets called, and the winner is decided at that point differential. And then you could keep on the court and utilize the court or something like that.
I like that rule because as a team who is, unfortunately always down by a 4-point differential, it does get pretty tiring because, I'm one of the throwers for my team, so I'm constantly throwing and everything. It does get a little tiring once it's a little discouraging and everything, and tiring once we're down, 4 points, because that's like a tough comeback. So I like the mixing up teams. It also helps with you getting to know other players and everything from different teams. So I do like that rule proposal. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, essentially, this kind of happens right now. A lot of times when I'll ref another game outside of Michigan or something where the chance is to be 4-0 or something like that, they generally will tell me to cut the match and record the results at there, and then I'll establish a running clock, and then they'll play out the next 10 minutes, switching up teams and stuff like that. So this is almost an unofficial policy put into the rule book.
Yeah, I think it would also be pretty beneficial for nationals too. I mean, since we play so many games, it's best not to waste arms on a game you're already up for. I mean, we have subs, but even those subs get tired. So I agree. I think it's a good rule.
I think it's I've always argued against these kind of things. We have a running clock rule, and it's the loser's discretion, and I wanted to put that in for this rule if it passed as a condition, because the loser shouldn't give up time. It should be their discretion to play it out. I think it shouldn't be just automatic, but that's probably a part of the discussion.
Yeah. I feel like most of the time the loser is always okay, we're down, it's 4-0, we'll concede the rest of the points and everything like that, and we'll just play.
Yeah, I mean, it usually happens like that, but sometimes there's maybe a team in the Final Four wants to make use of their their seniors' last bit of time in the Final Four, and they want to play. So I have no qualms about that.
I think it's good putting that condition in there, because I can see a team being down 4-0 and really trying to push to get a single point. For a lot of teams, that's a big accomplishment. So if they think they can get a point and they want to keep trying, then I think it's up to them. I mean, it's fair to give them a chance.
Yeah, so that's why I like the condition of putting in as the loser. The head referee goes over to the losing captain and says, "So, what do you want to do? You want to run the clock? Do you want to switch up teams?" I think that's the condition that should be in any of these mercy rule type situations, because I think it's, I don't know, we travel a lot as a league, So I don't want to waste people's time,
Right.
and make the financial use of their time, essentially get the most financial use.
Yeah, I mean, I do get that, especially, being on the end of that. I remember one time at Baldwin Wallace, I think we were playing Central Michigan, and we only brought like 11 players to that tournament, and then they're like, sure, we'll play 11 players with you, and then we ended up like getting close to a point, but then it was just more fun. It was like less discouraging for us because we actually like were able to compete and everything, as opposed to our 11 versus their 15, and it being like a spanking. So it was a lot like.
Yeah, I think it's a good point too. I mean, instead of just switching up teams, I mean, if you establish that mercy rule and establish like that's where the game's going to end, then I think more teams would be willing to decrease their roster for like the points moving forward.
That's a good suggestion. That's a good yeah. I like that. That's good. So Caleb brought up a potential con. So we'll say a team, in his words, I quote, a team that goes with, let's say, 10 players on and plays a team with a full roster and goes down to 4 points in the first half every game would only play an essential 3 out of 6 halves that day. So essentially, if they get down in the first half, the game could be called at halftime essentially, and they get cheated out of that 20, 25 minutes.
Right. Yeah, that's a potential downside as to why you had the point of saying that it was up to the losing team's discretion, because they might not want to concede 25 minutes of playing time. So I do like your stipulation of it would have to be okay with the losing captain.
Yeah. Any closing comments on this? I think it was pretty simple, but it was a good discussion. Good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it already happens most of the time anyways, but I think it should be loser's discretion. If it were to pass, that could be a stipulation that the losing captain would have.
Yeah. All right, so on to our next little tidbit on the rules before we get to the big one, is
Early OT.
Early
overtime, which is a simple proposal by me. This kind of gets set up and happens all the time. Michigan has a lot of games that end up this season in overtime, and two happened at the ODC, or MDC, sorry, Michigan Dodgeball Cup. And then I was like, you guys still have 3 minutes to play, and they were setting up for overtime, and I was reffing, and I was like, okay, we'll just let it go. So it's something that happens already. So
I think it's pretty unanimous on this rule, because I mean nothing's going to happen in 3 minutes, and I know from experience when we're going to OT and we know it's going to OT, I'm sitting at the back line talking to other captains, talking about who we want in our OT squad. I'm not even focused on that last 3 minutes anyways. So I think just rolling it over, maybe using that time if we need to, maybe just an extended break before OT. But I mean, even just rushing right to OT, I think is a good idea too.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's interesting. Some of the rolling over that time into the established break. Because right now, between points, we don't really have a break. It's just as an official, I try to teach people to don't lollygag, kind of hustle around to establish the game, because those are really big dead areas in timing that you could really make up if your officiating team is just helping put balls back and get people back into play. I know a lot of teams have, or at least a couple, not a lot, but a couple teams have taken advantage of that. And so I'm asking them to ready for whistle, and they're yelling at me, and I was like, I'm going to charge you a timeout if you're going to take any longer. But anyways, that's ranting about it. But no, this is if a point's scored in under 4 minutes, I think it's pretty simple. Just like early halftime, there'll be early overtime. Any potential cons, pros, whatever you want to talk about?
Pros could be get the games moving at a better pace. You're not wasting a couple minutes, because a lot of times tournaments do end up being later than they're supposed to, with time between games and stuff. So yeah, so that could help decrease the overages, I guess.
I think the biggest pro is not wasted time,
Yeah.
essentially. Because it's like based on the statistics that we've been recording, based on point differentials, it's very rare that a game is going to be under 4 minutes, finished in under 4 minutes, in a overtime setting, like in an equal match.
Yeah.
It's different when it's 4-0 and stuff like that, but it's in a 2-2 match or 1-1 match or 0-0 match. Those games are very, very long, so I think the statistics back this up.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, unless it's like a team that's dominated the whole entire match and it's like 5-1 or 4-0, then I don't see a point being scored in 4 minutes or less than 4 minutes.
Yep. All right, so on to our next thing that's actually proposed by Zach, which is changing the legitimate attempt zone. So I'll just start by defining our current one. Right now, it's a step and a lunge in any of the 3 dimensions. So step to the side and a reach with your hand, with your arm. Step to the right and a reach with your arm. It also goes to above your head. Like I like to classify it. Not the player doesn't need to jump, but it should be like raise their hands above their head, and that like kind of 7 foot by 5 foot, and it actually changes based on the size of the player. So like a smaller player is going to have a smaller zone, like a strike zone almost.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, why don't you present your proposal?
Well, I think the way I described it is changing from a step and a lunge to basically just a lunge. The way I worded it was the current catching player's maximum full body reach at the time of the ball's arrival, or essentially a circle, like you said, that 3D bubble around roughly 3 feet. Now I'm talking like instead of just taking out the steps, you still get that lunge. So you can take your 1 foot and reach as far over as you want. You reach up, or you reach to the other side, or even forward. And then, so that's basically what I'm thinking. Is just kind of cutting in half.
Yeah, taking that step out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the main reason I proposed it is because anybody who saw the national title game saw that the game was won by stall ball. I'm not bashing Grand Valley at all whatsoever for playing it, but they played their game and they won it. But I think if stall ball was eliminated, the game might have ended differently. And one of the side effects I see coming from this is it promotes more throws on the body, because if your ball has to be closer to the person, you're not going to take that. It's going to be a larger risk to kill the clock, essentially. So that larger risk just be turned into going for a kill, and you'll put more behind your throw if you're trying to go for a kill instead of just killing the clock. Also, it'll also make more opportunities for catches, so you have both more throwers and more catchers that are able to shine. So that's basically what I think is the pro so far.
Yeah. Let's touch on that. On putting more power behind your throw in order to get a kill, because you're constricted a little bit on a smaller zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually a pretty good point, and it's tough. Like some teams, some of the worse off teams in our league that are not don't have the training that Michigan has, or like the drive to be that accurate. It's a trouble, and like a lot of those games, I'll widen the zone in my own perception as an official, and like if I'm trying to override a person, I'll try to override it and be like, no, well they're generally making an effort to reset the shot clock or to get somebody out, not just reset the shot clock every 15 minutes. Because as an official, you could generally tell when people are working the clock. So a lot of times, maybe I'll start being more stringent because the idea behind the rule is, well, that's just my own official's interpretation, and it's definitely different sometimes. Like, for example, at the MDC when I was reffing, I was calling them very small to begin with, and everyone was fighting it so much that I just widened it up a tiny bit because everyone was fighting it, and I didn't want to stop the games all the time. And by the end, they kind of closed up a little bit because people were forcing it because their arms were tired over the whole day.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if people are struggling to hit the zone, it will result in more balls over. But I think if teams implement this during practice, they'll improve their accuracy. Instead of trying to hit that 6-foot range in practice, trying to aim for a 3-foot range, you will see a dramatic difference in their skill level. Plus, in practice, if they're getting these kind of throws, their team should be looking for more catches at practice too. So I mean, I know from like my captain standpoint, I'm going to be implementing this in practice, whether it gets passed or not, because it forces us to make better throws and it gives us more opportunities to catch. And I think if we do that during practice, the results will show in the game.
I think it's definitely a good training mechanic. What do you think, Colby?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy for like teams like who are very like established and like everything with their abilities and everything like Central Michigan or Grand Valley to say, oh yeah, it's really it'll just be have a better for throwers and catchers, but teams like University of Akron or Ohio that are like just starting out, like we don't have that skill set yet. Like most of us, we're just like natural athletes who just picked up the sport. Like I joined 2 semesters ago, and I still am learning every single day about all this. Like I said, I just started pinching a semester ago, and so like my skills or anything aren't as honed. Like I was only a catcher when I first started because I played goalie in soccer, so that was my only skill. But like a lot of people just come in just wanting to play dodgeball, don't have any of those skills. I know my team, for certain, we have a couple people who are just bodies. It's terrible to say, but like we have people that just fill the roster, and like so stuff like that. Like they're really trying, but like some people can't even hit the LAZ right now at their current skill level.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the cons that people brought up too at the captain's meeting is that it could create more of a skill gap between the top tier and the bottom tier teams. But I mean the way I see it, this rule isn't supposed to shrink that gap or widen it at all. It's a stall ball is only a problem when you're facing teams of the same caliber. Because I mean, if you play a team like Akron or Baldwin Wallace, we're not going to try to kill the clock. We're going for kills every throw because we know we can do it. But when we play Grand Valley State, we're trying to kill the clock. And I've seen the same thing. Like when Akron plays Baldwin Wallace, I mean, you guys are still trying to use the time efficiently and use that to your strategy to help you win the game. So I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but if each team struggles the same amount with it, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Right, I see where you're coming from with the teams like how close they are in ability, and I do definitely agree with you on that one. I know Adam, who's the other captain, he tries to do the stall ball, and I'm like Adam. I was like, instead of like palming a throw and throwing at their feet, it's a lot more. I don't know, like you get it like if I were to be a very intimidating thrower, if I would walk up to that line and somebody was intimidated by my throw, I wouldn't want to throw a little pansy throw at their feet just to kill time. I'd want to try to kill them with my throw. And so that's one of the things I like about shortening the zone is that you are forced to throw more efficient, more like throws like that. So I do agree with this rule. I was just trying to throw a point out there just like for the little guy, you know what I mean? But I do agree with the shortening the LAZ.
And one of the things I wrote down earlier, I mean, hopefully the benefit from this rule is to eliminate stall ball in general. Like, I don't want people trying to make those throws. So, like, one of the things I thought of is, like, if a throw is impossible to catch, why are we counting it as a throw?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was more,
I mean,
in history, the great history of this rule was before it was defined as LAZ, or legitimate temp zone, it was just a way to stop milking the clock by throwing in general. And narrowing that down in any case, in any particular case, was better than nothing. So right now, the step and a lunge, the step part, it was just, that was how the rule got written. It wasn't anything seriously logical about what we're talking about now, like giving them more zone. It was just like, what's a normal throw right now to get somebody out? And usually it's going to be within that 6 foot. So if I'm 6 foot tall, and my arm's three feet from my center, then that's another step is probably another 3 feet, something like that, 2 feet. That 5 feet to the left and then 5 feet to the right, that just made sense back in the day.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's something I think the league should consider seriously. And it's not like it's a hard and fast rule. It's a strike zone. It's what
Yeah.
people. It's the official and the timekeeper will, call it small or call it big depending on. We don't have computers. We couldn't have computers on that
Mhm.
in the next 10 years.
Yeah, and there will always be officials who call it differently, like just by the way they see it. So if I throw, and I'm like very very precise in my throwing, they'll call it a good ball. But if there's a thrower who can't really, he's trying very hard and everything, but he just can't hit like that, like 3 foot or whatever, like shorten it is, like he might just call it anyway just because it was a good attempt or something like that. There will always be like officials calling it how they see fit.
Yeah, I think that's going back to a lot of my arguments about some of these rules is just use the official's discretion.
Yeah.
They're usually older. They know the game. They can kind of tell what players they've been around a lot. So I don't know. I like to give a little bit more credit to the officials from doing it. That's why I never say don't put your freshmen as shot clock timekeepers because they don't know what's going on.
Well,
The best position for them is the assistant ref because they don't do anything. They just watch, and maybe they'll give out a card, but hopefully probably not. I mean, but yeah, no. Geez, any other thoughts?
yeah, I've got a couple more. One of them, like essentially the main goal of this is obviously to eliminate those stall ball throws. So my definition, I mean, I'm open to have it changed to like anything, but the basic idea is a throw should only count if it has a chance of hitting the player who attempts to make a catch. It's basically what my thought process is. And I know at the captain's meeting, some people brought up, okay, what if a guy's on his knees, or what if he's laying on the ground, like these different scenarios. I think it's fine tuned to fit each of those scenarios. Like if you're on your knees, then it's obviously you don't get that movement with your legs. It's strictly arms. So if you're laying down, I think it should still be I can sit up and we reach with my arms kind of thing.
Yeah. There will always be what ifs to every proposal. There'll always be scenarios that somebody brings up that like, what if this happens or just if this happens. So no matter what you propose, there's going to be people who try to, go against it. Just because change is really difficult in like a league like this. But I like the like shortening the attempt zone just because it does force people to be more precise with throwing. I know that like next semester I'm implementing like drills and stuff just to get my team to have everybody to the caliber of throwing that like my team's top 4 throwers have, just so we don't all tire our arms down and everything. But I do like making the zone smaller. It does help with efficiency of the game and everything.
Another condition I thought of is if you're on a 10 count, it might be hard for you to get a smaller zone in less time. So maybe if your team's on a 10 count, maybe you extend the zone to what it is right now, so that they're more able to run back and forth while still making accurate throws.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing behind the 10-man or the five-man rule. It's like it's meant to speed up the game, as in like get people out because they're throwing or like basically forfeit the balls, which I don't think is fair to the player when they're down like that. But at the same point, it's so easy just to sit there in the back and catch. And I think we have a new rule last year that was good for that. Is like if you are risking the catch and you catch on a 5 count, then it resets your clock. I think that was a nice balance for that rule. So I'm not sure if particularly that would work. Like if you added a step and a lunge for a 5-man rule or a condition under that rule set, I think it just makes it more complicated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's true. When we vote on these rules, are we voting on like what we're going to set them as, or just voting on like, things need to be changed?
Essentially, you're voting on the spirit behind the rule. So like each rule will have vote to stay the same, vote to change, and then like say like for instance Dylan and Dylan Wes's rule will be 2 different things. So it's like preferential vote, which all our votes are preferential to begin with, but it'd be like vote to change Dylan's proposal or Wes's proposal. But like I don't know, you just gotta give it up to the executive board to put it together in a logical manner or something like that. And that's what I was struggling with earlier today, trying to put it all together in a certain logical vote setting. And I don't know, if something's not logical and the end of the vote, then maybe we'll have a recall vote, and then just to fix whatever we voted on, essentially. So if we voted on a bunch of different stuff.
Just to fine tune the rule changes, just so like you can vote to change the rule, just we can fine tune it after it is voted to change. Yeah.
Essentially, when everyone voted at the captain's meeting, that was a vote for consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, so like a couple of proposals were knocked out because they didn't pass the majority vote. It's like a motion vote almost for that for consideration. This one is the bigger vote, and then coming up end of July in a couple days or so, a couple weeks, we'll start that. We'll have these rules, vote on them, and then the executive board will come back with a new rule book, and we'll ask people to give their consideration, like a simple veto or yes or no veto or something like that, which is how we've done it many times before. It's kind of coded in the Constitution a little bit. I don't know. We're as an executive board, I've always pushed people to, we got to be good about what we're changing and fair and stuff like that. So everybody has a voice. You ever, always come up and tell me about it, unless if nothing's wrong and nobody's monitoring to me personally, then I don't think anything's wrong. I think everything's dandy. So you guys got to complain to me. I'm ready. Okay, so any closing comments on any of the three before we start?
Well, I've got a couple comments just in general. Well, first, going back to my rule, I think stall I think the league is on an agreement that stall ball needs to be fixed, and I think my rule is the most efficient way to do it. Some people might have other opinions, but hopefully we all agree that something needs to change. And going off of that, in order to change something, people have to vote, and that's what I'm afraid of. People tend to disappear over the summer, so hopefully people realize that we're trying to better the league, and voting is one of the best ways to do that. These rules.
It's actually in the Constitution. Member teams have an obligation to vote. It's a requirement. So we give you 2 weeks to do it.
And I can wait for Felix's oath about the deadline.
Felix will do songs, he'll do text, he'll do phone calls, anything to get that vote.
I think I'm going to have Akron just wait a little bit, because I like Felix's mix-ups.
Just make sure you say it, because that, there's always going to be one person, but, when me and Felix are looking at teams and there's, one team that voted and the day of, and then nobody else votes, it's discouraging. So you guys got to tell me about it. Probably.
Hey, we know what we want. I'm just gonna wait a little bit. I like these mix-ups too much.
All right. So all right. Anything else? Closing statements?
Oh, I got it.
I think the most important part. I'll make one. The most important part is to vote. Just vote, and if you want to discuss them before we get there, we have a couple more podcast opportunities for Average Joe's podcast. So I am Zygma Spoloni in Chicago.
I am Colby Bryson in Myrtle Beach.
I'm Zach in Oxford.
And this has been Average Joe's podcast. Thank you guys for listening.